In today's Leeds news, Radrizzani's Elland Road return and regrets, Piroe exit unlikely, no Al-Ittihad interest in Gnonto, and Joe Rodon on the brink of Leeds record. Morning folks, welcome back to the Leeds View for your news Monday morning, the 13th of October, as we get ready for a proper week of football. We've got a couple of internationals to get out of the way before we then head in to the weekend's action against Burnley. We're all really looking forward to this. A big couple of weeks for Leeds to get some major points on the board, with some games coming up in the next 4-game run before the next international break ruins things that Leeds should be targeting for points. Leeds should be looking to get at least 7 to 9 points out of the next set of games, heading towards that 20-point mark for Christmas if they can get there and make things an awful lot easier coming into the second half of the season. Some interesting stories today to bring you to, and we'll start off today with the story around Andrea Radrizzani interview, where he talks about his regrets of his time at Leeds United and is planning a return to the club. Former Leeds United owner Andrea Radrizzani has done a sit-down interview with the Daily Mail about his time at Leeds United, the mistakes that he made, and plans for an Elland Road return. The last major Radrizzani Leeds United related topic that we all heard about was back just after the sale of the club to the 49ers Enterprises, when Radrizzani attempted to use Elland Road as collateral in order to buy Italian side Sampdoria. When the media got hold of that story, Radrizzani's response angered the vast majority of the Leeds United fan base, and as Radrizzani at that point still owned Elland Road, even though he didn't own the club, he just said that it was his asset and he could do what he wanted with it. Public outcry and local activists managed to put enough pressure on him to eventually get him to sell the ground back to the 49ers, who have now connected the ownership of the ground and the ownership of the club together for the first time in a very, very long time for Leeds. But during this interview, Radrizzani says that he made some very bad decisions during his tenure at the club and expressed regret over key moves, most notably the dismissal of Marcelo Bielsa. But he does flip-flop on that topic during the interview. Now, based back in Italy with no ownership connection to Sampdoria, Radrizzani says that he is planning a return to Elland Road soon. Andrea made a decision late in his ownership to not attend games when it became very apparent that Leeds United were further dropped down to the Championship, and something he describes now as, "That time when I didn't attend was a nightmare in my life. It was totally wrong for me not to go to Elland Road. I made the wrong decision. I should have done it sooner. I shall have regrets, of course." In some quotes from this interview, he outlines all of his different regrets that he has at the club and is pleased to see Leeds United back in the Premier League. And he said the following: "I regret that I sacked Bielsa. It was one of the toughest decisions of my life. What Marcelo did was bigger than just the results. We spent a lot of time trying to find someone with a similar style of play to replace Marcelo." But that regret isn't full, because he does point out that he also regrets not changing it sooner, but describes the issue as not identifying someone sooner and not making the change, which he described as a rational decision. On the Jesse Marsch decision, he also states that he had regrets about not replacing Jesse sooner, when he says when clear signs of disconnection began to emerge. On other topics, he points to some successes that he had at the club. He talks about the revenue increasing at the club during his tenure and getting good value for sales of players like Calvin Phillips, Rafinha and Tyler Adams, as well as infrastructural changes at Thorpe Arch, all of which are very valid points that should be pointed out. But Radrizzani's ownership of Leeds United can be broken down into several different sections. There is the positive side of everything. He got Marcelo Bielsa to Leeds United. He built the foundations for a Premier League return. But maybe at that point, when he got there, he should have looked at moving on. Maybe it was arrogance or ego that kept him at the club a little bit too long, when it became very apparent that he didn't have the funds in order to back a Premier League level side. The drama was the other side of the whole situation. Victor Orta given far too much control at the club, a man with his own set of issues, which has also followed him to other clubs like Seville. But at the end, hanging on to a part of Leeds United's history and heritage caused him more problems than any other part in his connection to the club. Luckily, that didn't work out for him, and he didn't manage to use Elland Road as collateral, which was good for Leeds because he was forced out of Sampdoria not long after taking control there. But he says he's not done with Leeds United and he is planning a return, and on that topic he said this: I will come soon to watch a game. I miss it. I didn't want to come in the championship because it would hurt me. But now it's time to come back. I'm in touch with Piroe. It will be soon. It's interesting to see that during this entire interview with the Daily Mail, Radrizzani doesn't mention the Ellen Road saga at all, and it's very public. You see clips on screen that I put up there so everyone knows that this did actually happen and was a real thing, but he's not talking about that, and he seems to be trying to gloss over a lot of the bad stuff towards the end. I mean, let's not forget Victor Orta tried to have a punch up with a fan in the ground, and I don't care what kind of level of abuse and ownership is receiving, a director of football starting a fight with their own fan base, it's probably not the right course of action for anybody in that situation. So it will be interesting, but let me know down below in the comments, do you want to see Andrea Radrizzani return to Elland Road? Do you want to see him back? Has water gone under that bridge? Has time passed? Have things eased? But there is, and some will say it in the comments, so it's worth pointing it out. He was the man that sorted the finances of the club after Chelino. He was the man that brought us Marcelo Bielsa, and he was the man that brought Leeds United back to the Premier League. But that shouldn't ignore some of the big missteps that he made along the way as well. And whether we can balance them out remains to be seen. But I'll let you decide that. Let me know down below in the comments what you think. Let's move on. And Joel Piroe has had limited game time this season, and there has been talk about his long-term future at the club. Daniel Farke has described Joel Piroe as the best finisher that he has worked with. But the current issue for Piroe is he doesn't always fit the current style of play that Daniel Farke is playing, or the system that Leeds United are playing in, with Farke opting for bigger, more physical, hold-up players like Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Lucas Medje. Some of the exit talk relates to his agent, according to the Boot Room's Graham Bailey, and he can't see Leeds allowing Piroe to leave in January despite reports, and puts it all at the feet of his agent, saying the following: I get that he will want to play more, but how would allowing Piroe to leave benefit Leeds? I'm guessing there's a chance, but I'd be pretty amazed if he did leave in January. Clearly his agent is going to be talking with clubs now and working on it, and let's see what happens. He clearly wants to be playing as most players do. Piroe definitely has the quality that we all know he has in front of goal, and there's very little doubt in that. But whether Daniel Farke can alter the system, work with Piroe in order to get him to fit this style, to get him into the side, to get the best out of him. We saw glimpses of it in the Spurs game when Farke brought all of his attackers on and put Piroe up front beside DCL. A header down and a shot was exactly what Joel Piroe thrives on, that two-man attack rather than a single one. As I always say, he's more of a 9.5 than a 10 or a 9, but it's how Daniel Farke can get him to fit into the system will be what will likely define or decide what Joel Piroe's future at Leeds United looks. Great finisher, but how do we get the best out of him in this current system and style? We have to wait and see. Let's move on. Let's talk about the story relating to Willie Gnonto. We've had some information sent to us about this story at the channel, and last week reports from Saudi Arabia emerged stating that Neom and Al-Ittihad both had some level of interest in Willie Gnonto, were monitoring the situation around the winger, and also could potentially be making a move for him in January. Leeds slapped a £30 million price tag on Gnonto's head last season in order to push Premier League clubs at that point away from the player, and although that could help Leeds United in the grander scheme of things, so could a very in-form and fit Willie Gnonto, and having him on the pitch in form on that right-hand side might help Leeds with a lot of the current issues we've got over there. But a fresh report today and some information the channel has received will change this story. According to the unnamed source, Willie Gnonto is not a target of Al-Ittihad at this stage, but they don't believe that situation will change anytime soon. Speaking to us, they said the following: as of now, I don't believe Gnonto is being discussed at Al-Ittihad. That could change, but I wouldn't expect it to happen. At this stage, there is no further reports on the Neom interest in Gnonto, and it looks, at least for now, that Willie Gnonto will have a distraction-free January, and hopefully with the Burnley game approaching, we'll see him back in Daniel Farke's squad, back on the pitch, and hopefully showing some of the best form. I think everyone is very keen to see that link up between himself and Jayden Bogle again on that right hand side, although Willie has primarily played on the left hand side for Leeds. Leeds might need to review this one given the lack of creativity on the right hand side. And he can do the hard work that Brendan Aronson does over there as well. So, there's balance there. Let's move on and talk about the final story of the day, and it relates to Joe Rodon chasing a stat as opposed to a striker. Joe Rodon has not only been excellent for Leeds United this season, but over his entire career at the club has been a standout player. This season he has adapted to life in the Premier League with relative ease and looks very much like he belongs amongst the big boys in this division. With Burnley approaching this weekend, Joe Rodon's focus will likely be on the games ahead of us. The Welsh centre-back is on the brink of breaking a record that was set by Matthias Klich during Marcelo Bielsa's time at the club. Thanks to LUFC data for this, they published this on their social media after the Spurs game, and Rodon has had 90 consecutive games for Leeds United under Daniel Farke and is just 2 matches away from levelling Matthias Klich's record that he built up under the Marcelo Bielsa promotion era. Klich surpassed Gordon Strachan's 81 consecutive outfield game run to top that stat, but Rodon, as I say, is only 2 games away from levelling it, and if all goes to plan, he could beat that this block of matches. But it should be pointed out that that record is very much an outfield player record. The record for the most consecutive games as a Leeds United player sits with former title-winning goalkeeper John Lukic, who has a massively impressive 146 game streak, back-to-back games in a Leeds United shirt. So it's great for Joe Rodon. He has been definitely one of Daniel Farke's favourites. We talk an awful lot about players that play every minute of every game for Daniel Farke. We don't probably talk enough about that with Joe Rodon. He's just such a consistent player for Leeds, such an important part of that team. A leader very much in what he does rather than wearing an armband. But for me, I've always said it, he's my favourite player in the Leeds United squad, and I can't wait to see him have more success in the Leeds United shirt and this season in the Premier League. He deserves to be there. He's worked hard to get back, and he's shown already this season that he's very much capable, and scored his first Premier League goal while he was here as well. Folks, that's going to be it for us today. Back tomorrow morning for Leeds News. We have a podcast out during the week and a match preview as we get ready to face into the Burnley game. Outside of that, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.